morning, everyone. This is the edition for today, Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2019. I am boosting Mofai. This is your Business Morning. Let's start with today's business briefing. Metal products giant in Nigeria, Wemco, has denied media reports about proposed sale of Lagos Oriental Hotel and exit from Nigeria. The company says although the Nigerian economy faces tough times, our firm belief in the resilience of the nation's economy remains unshaken, and we will continue to develop alongside Nigeria for many decades to come. That's putting to rest some media reports that this company involved in big business of metal products and also the part owner of the Lekki-based Oriental Hotel is planning to exit Nigeria. Wemco says although the Lekki-based Oriental Hotels is a big flagship hospitality part of its business, but it's not a flagship of the Wemco Group. The company says they are in Nigeria for many decades to come, so they've been here for decades, and they understand that economies go through tough times, but they're not in any way leaving Nigeria. And that's putting that story to rest. Wemco Group says it's not selling off and leaving Nigeria. Meantime, so Nigerian authorities have named some Shell and Eni executives, two international oil companies, one UK, the other Italian, in London court papers filing in relation to $1 billion OPL 245 bribery case. If you're following that, you already know the story already. Shell says, however, says the transaction was fully legal and denied company's knowledge if improper payments were made to any Nigerian government officials. In a similar vein, Eni, of a spokesperson, also says the Nigeria's London case being pursued was, quote, a mere duplication of a related case which is been held in Milan, in Italy. And that's the story there. According to Bloomberg reports on Tuesday, Shell and Eni were named by Nigeria in those court papers filed in London to ask questions relating to $1 billion bribery involving the oil block. So let's bring up to speed what's also the latest about the plan to have a national microfinance bank. NIPOST has denied some media reports that the postal agency is now leaving its traditional role that would run the National Microfinance Bank. The agency says NIPOST offices will only be used as service points by central banks. NASL, that's the agency responsible for agriculture insurance de-risking by the central bank. The new microfinance bank will be owned just by 10% by NIPOST, and that is what it gets for the new microfinance bank, which will use hundreds of its postal offices across the country to get down to the grassroots. So NIPOST is owning just 10% in the new National MFB PLC, which is promoted and largely owned by the Bankers Committee. The Bankers Committee comprises of all the CEOs of all the banks in Nigeria. They are the owners of the fund, and they're the ones who owns the new microfinance bank. 50% is what the Bankers Committee own. NASL, beg your pardon, that's that type of day, owns 40%, and then NIPOST has 10%. And that's putting it to rest. NIPOST says it's not deviating from its core functions running business of microfinance. Says it's NASL that will be responsible for managing that business. Meantime, FMDQ, OTC Securities Exchange and Nigerian Stock Exchange will today admit 8.50 billion naira power call SPV green bond, and that will bring to 2 the number of private sector floated green bonds in the Nigerian market space. The first was listed a few weeks ago by Access Bank Nigeria PLC. Now, Powercall will be doing the 2 separate listings on the FMDQ at about 10:30 this morning, and later in the afternoon at the closing bell on the Nigerian Stock Exchange on Custom Street. The officials will also be there to listen. This is on the back of the federal government of Nigeria ramping up on green bond or climate change bond by the Buhari's government, which started just about 2 years ago. Now, the corporate sector are coming up on the back of what the federal government has done, and we're having the second green bond listing. Let's go to the marketplace, where we have a lot of talk about and see whether MTN listing is the tonic that the Nigerian Stock Exchange, this Nigerian stock market needs as a game changer. But first, Temple Ashaju is here for this conversation. Temple, coming here very quickly, we're going to have a very lengthy conversation here. Temple is our business correspondent from our studios at the Stock Exchange. And of course, right here at our headquarters studios is the head of research at AfroInvest, Robert Today. Good morning. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
I'm sure the MTN story is a big story.
Yes.
But first, from the stock market, where the market has been a little bit sluggish over the last sessions. Temple Ashaju, let's bring you in here first. Temple, where are we?
Also, we're down some 0.34% yesterday in terms of what the key benchmark indices, experienced yesterday. We've lost some 38 billion naira in the equity capitalization, and you see that settling at 10.93 trillion naira. Of course, if you look at the activity level, it was quite positive yesterday. Rose up by some 59% yesterday. We saw a 2.83 billion naira worth of transactions yesterday in terms of the value of the transactions that we saw. And of course, Courtville was about the only company that helps to contribute massively to that. If you look at the sectoral front, given the losses that we saw across the bellwethers, we saw the negative performance extending further. And of course, on the sectoral front, the only sector that actually gained was the industrial goods segment of the market, thanks to Better Glass and Kyotex PLC. For the energy side of the market, if you look at that critically, there was basically no positive movement on the prices that you have on that side of the market. Every company, almost all the companies actually remained unchanged except for 3 companies. That's O&O, which lost 5.15%, and of course, Eternal PLC and Japol. For the NASD O2C, we're down by some 1.9% yesterday. We saw a volume at 17.9 million yesterday, and of course, you saw the market capitalization also depreciating to 541 billion naira. If you take a look at the fixed income side of the market, bond side of things traded flat yesterday, but there was a bit of demand on the 2023 papers, specifically the 27th of April 2023 paper, just like we saw at the short end of the curve. And in total, we saw some 23 deals in total on bonds yesterday. But for the treasury bill side of things, given the robust system liquidity that we have, we saw the CBN announcing some kind of OMO auction yesterday, and that was understandably oversubscribed eventually, Bosin.
Temple, stand by for this conversation. It's your market and it's Robert Omotunde's market as well. So we'll touch base with you during this conversation. Robert, it's good to have you on the program.
You're watching Channels Television broadcasting from Lagos. For now, we interrupt this broadcast to take you live to the Appeal Court of the Abuja Division, where the Presidential Election Petition Panel has begun its inaugural session. Please stay with us.
Those in the middle, please move. Those in the middle, please spread out. Spread out. So, a good morning to each and every one of you here present. I extend my warm welcome to you all on this occasion of the inaugural sitting of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal Court, which is established pursuant to Section 239 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Elections are held in Nigeria every 4 years into elective positions. No
because again, the corporates, I believe, they're trying to watch when the right timing, it is for them to come to the market. Last year was supposed to be an IPO, but again, that did not happen. But thankfully, they are coming to list, and I mean the shares have been listed currently at I think about 20.3 billion units of shares have been approved by the SEC to be listed, and that's definitely, hopefully, should come perhaps before the end of the first half of the year.
Okay, quite a lot. Let's touch in with basically Temple. Temple Ashaju, coming here, what are you hearing at the floor of the exchange with brokers, traders about what they're looking out for as the catalyst for the market?
Well, they're really expecting MTN to come into the market with the 20.03 billion ordinary shares that will be coming. I mean, that's way higher than what some companies already trading in the market currently have. At this point, what they understand is that it is unimaginable how much of appetite the company, MTN Nigeria, listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, by any means, by introduction, or by any means, will eventually have on the first day of listing. So what they are waiting for, what they are siphoning money for right now is just the listing of MTN, and that's they just can't wait to have that happen. Because again, like Robert said earlier, I mean, the point is there hasn't been any catalyst in the market. Bring in MTN alone and it will change the narrative in the ICT subsector in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Bosun.
So it's going to, once you have the yellow MTN, it's going to be yellow all over the ticker tape. Most likely.
Most likely. And again, from the valuation perspective, it's something to look forward to. You know, if you look at the current market capitalization and you imagine that 20.3 billion shares, I mean, you look at the pricing at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange for the MTN group, currently at about 43 times. So even if the Nigerian market leads at half of that multiple, what you will likely have at the 2018 earnings of MTN is a market cap for MTN Nigeria nearing a 4.5 trillion naira. No. You know, but again,
that's going to be a lot of
fingers are crossed.
A lot of smiles on
fingers are crossed on what valuation will look like when.
Okay,
when
we'll continue this conversation. Temple, thank you so much for coming through here. We'll check in with you a little bit later on the floor for the trading day. I will just get you news about Forty Oil reporting first quarter 2019 98.64% growth in its operating profits, paying a ₦1.15 special dividend from proceeds of divestment. Temple, I'm sure you're going to be looking this all over for us later on the program. But let's continue this conversation. And Robert, into the agri sector. We've seen the numbers from Okomo Oil and those who are in the palm oil business looking not looking so good because, again, they said they are feeling the heat from smugglers and all that. So the Central Bank and Ministry of Agriculture are doing more about how to get the palm oil industry locally back into a reckoning, as it were. But let's have this conversation also with Celestine Okeke, who is joining us live from our Abuja studio. Celestine Okeke is a lead partner at CEDI. Celestine, good morning. Thanks for coming through on the program.
Good morning, Boston. Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you. Now, let's start with you. Based on what you know and what you're doing on the ground, the Central Bank, the Ministry of Agriculture are focusing more on agri sector, palm oil, because of the influx of smuggled finished oil palm products, and on one side, and of course a few days ago with the cotton seed, high-yield cotton seed for farmers in Katsina State. Do you think these initiatives should be able to help agro-industry?
Okay, thank you for asking me that question. I will start by saying what we've often had in the last couple of years is ad hoc interventions, not interventions that are thought through, that starting from the first thing that needs to be done to the last thing that we should do. So they've been ad hoc, and because they've often been ad hoc, they've not been able to lift, say, the oil palm, the cotton, the groundnut, the maize, wheat, rice, cassava from where it presently is to where it should be. So if you look at the yield for oil palm, for instance, look at the yield for maize, for wheat, for cassava, over a 5-year period, we've not seen the kind of change we need to see for those sectors. So if you look at, if you then ask why is smuggling a concern for something like oil palm or something like maize, millet, cotton, and the rest, it's because our production capacity has not improved in the last couple of years. So it's cheaper for the farmer in Benin Republic, in Ghana, to produce his oil palm and smuggle it into Nigeria to sell at a lower price, as compared to that man in Imo State, in Abia State, in Odo State, who is still using traditional methods to produce his or her oil palm, and that brings about high cost of production and lower yield. So when he or she brings to the market, he can't compete favorably with the price for imported, even from Ghana. Whenever we're talking of Western countries now, from countries like Ghana and Benin Republic. So when these things come into Nigeria, they're cheaper than what we have produced in Nigeria. So that is why we have those issues around why smuggling is a challenge for as little as oil palm. It shouldn't be a challenge for us, but until we begin to improve yield for our smallholder farmers who are involved in all staple crops, we won't go far.
Okay, so do you think, Robert, here, and taking that from the field of agriculture to Market Street, trying to connect the two, do you think if some of these initiatives are putting some of these items on these goods, agro products on 41 items, which is now 43, is a way to begin to help? Perhaps we'll see more agro-allied companies listed on the NSE.
Well, for us, we've always not aligned with the demand side management of things, you know. Again, while there is the need to protect the local companies, the local industries, you know, or in this case, the farmers, again, we need to learn to do things in a competitive way, you know. And what do I mean by that? In a situation where all the protection that the farmers want is for the government to ban certain items, you know. Think about the reason why we've not been able to sign the AFTA, that's Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, you know. It's because we are worried about the competitiveness of most of our companies here, you know. So what do we need to do to become more competitive? You know, in the marketplace, we have Okomo and Presco listed in that space, you know, and most of the problems that the guests in Abuja spoke about, you know, some of them have been able to weather the storm around this area. You know, they have high yielding seeds that they plant, you know, and it's helping them. But again, competition is still something to worry about because, again, smuggling is making prices, you know, cheaper, whereas they are, you know, incurring higher costs in order to be able to produce most of these goods. But definitely, demand control may not do it for us. We need to look inward and see how much more we can become more competitive, you know, for us to be able to, you know, compete globally.
What do you think, Celestine, in Abuja, what do you think the key issues are for farmers and producers? What exactly do they want? And do you think the Ministry of Agriculture is up to speed on this? Because whichever way we bring it, the central bank is still the business of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Okay, so basically what the farmers want needs to be properly framed. We need to understand what farmers want as against what they need. And let me explain that a bit. So if you talk to farmers and you ask them what's their biggest challenge for, say, oil palm in Nigeria, a good number of them will tell you what they need is access to finance to be able to procure new equipment, or access to finance to be able to procure seedling and the rest. But the challenge is that most of these farmers lack basic knowledge on good agricultural practices. They lack knowledge on how to procure seeds and transport, store, and use the seeds that they've procured. So the first starting point is to be able to get farmers and give them the basic knowledge they need. Recall we're talking around the cotton initiative by the CBN governor in Sokoto State, where I reminded you that we had a program in November in Kano State, where we asked farmers where do they store their seeds after procuring the seed. And it came out that most of these farmers store their seeds in the same place they store fertilizer, in the same place they store that crop protection product. So what does it then do for the seed that you've been given? You go store it in a place where it will be ultimately contaminated, so that when you plant, it impacts on your seed. I won't take away the fact that Okomo and Presco are doing well, because these are big establishments that are often export-driven. They are not necessarily producing for the local market here. And they don't constitute more than 20 or 30% of the total production we have in Nigeria. So we need to go back and look at what do the smallholder farmers need. They need first basic knowledge, basic information, and basic good practices on how to procure seeds and use the seed they've procured, and how to manage their economies of production. Several farmers don't know how to calculate their economies of production. So when they go into these businesses, they are not even consigned or informed on how to carry out their enterprise in such a way that it will be profitable for them. So we need to go back to the drawing boards. We have like 4 states that are primary oil palm producers in Nigeria: your Imo State, Abia State, Ondo State, and one other state I've forgotten. If you go to this state and talk with the oil palm millers in this state, most of them don't have basic information on how to carry on their enterprises. So they are not being competitive. And like your guest in Lagos just said, we often want to ask government to protect small businesses, to protect smallholder farmers. But for how long will you do that? Because if you continue to bring policies that protect them, you are invariably aligned for smuggling.
Okay, Celestine, okay, from the lead partner at CEDI. Thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time on the program. Thank you so much to Robert.
Thank you, boss.
You seated here, so you get a handshake. Thank you both for coming on the program today. Let's change tack. When we come back after the break, we're talking about putting the screw on states and local government finances. The NFIU is bringing out the Riot Act.